All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. It looks like we are live. So excited to be with you today. If you are looking for Marine Mammal Monday, you are in the right place. So welcome. We're just going to wait for people to start joining. But in the meantime, while you wait, if you haven't joined us for Marine Mammal Monday before, or if you haven't been to our website, please head to marinemammalcenter.org and go check out our online learning resources. We've got an example of an activity guide up on the screen that pairs really well with today's Marine Mammal Monday presentation, all about understanding endangered species and celebrating conservation. So I see a couple more people joining. Welcome. So excited to be with you today. I was just talking about our activity guides, example on the screen, and to tell you to make sure to go to marinemammalcenter.org. While we wait for a couple more people to join, please feel free to let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from today. We'd love to hear about where in the world you are. I myself am tuning in from Redwood City. Katie, where are you tuning in from today?
I'm up in Eugene, Oregon.
Nice. So we're already spanning 2 states between the two of us. So, hi. Hello, Martin. Howdy. Thanks for joining us today. If you're just joining us for Marine Mammal Monday, you're in the right place. Just waiting for a couple more people to join before we get started. Make sure to let us know where you're tuning in from today. Hi, Denise from Boston. Welcome. And Springfield, West Virginia. Hello, Robin. Thanks for joining us today. We've got Angie tuning in from San Pablo. Awesome. And we've got Angel, it's a volunteer in Half Moon Bay. Doris from Novato. Nice. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And again, if this is your first Marine Mammal Monday, and if this is also your first time hearing of the Marine Mammal Center, make sure to head to our website, marinemammalcenter.org, and checking out our activities. And also feel free, on top of letting us know where you're coming in from, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will make sure to try to answer them during the presentation, and we also have Katie in the comments who will be answering your questions. Ooh, a couple more people. We've got someone from Jane from Oregon, Susan from San Jose, Simon from Tennessee, Debbie from the UK. Hello. From across the pond. All right, welcome everyone. Looking at the time, it's a couple minutes past 4, so I'll get us started. But before we do that, I want to introduce ourselves. So, excuse me, I just got a little trigger happy with my slides here. So I am Diane Hardy. I'm the Education Volunteer Coordinator at the Marine Mammal Center. I've been working here for about 4 years now, and what I do is I oversee the onboarding and training of our wonderful education volunteers and interns at the center. And joining me today and co-presenting is Katie Russell, our conservation education intern. Katie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I've been an intern with the center since February. I am also a master's student at the University of Oregon, studying environmental studies with an emphasis on education and nonprofit management.
Thank you, Katie. And we also, as always, have another Katie DiNacenzo, our communications coordinator, who will be monitoring the chat box, answering your questions in the comments, and anything that we will not be answering in today's presentation, Katie will try to get to. So excited to be with you all today. Sorry, it looks like my slides are a little bit slow. There we go. So before we get started on today's presentation, I want to tell you a little bit about the Marine Mammal Center, especially those of you who may not know that much about us. So the Marine Mammal Center is the world's largest marine mammal hospital and education facility. We are also a nonprofit and depend on our community of over 1,400 volunteers to do our work of rescue, rehabilitation, and release of our marine mammal patients. So we cover about 600 miles of California coastline, down from San Luis Obispo all the way up to Mendocino County. We also have another hospital over in Hawaii, where we take care of the endangered Hawaiian monk seal. And we'll actually be talking a little bit about the Hawaiian monk seal later in today's presentation. But every patient story at the Marine Mammal Center starts the same. It actually starts with a phone call from people just like you, from the public, who call our 24-hour hotline, 415-289-SEAL. If you are in California and you don't have this number yet in your phone, feel free to put it in now in case you come across an injured or sick seal or sea lion. But whenever we get a call come in through that hotline, we will send a team of experienced staff and volunteers to go out and assess the animal, check up on it, and if we deem that it does need our help, we will rescue it and bring it to our hospital. So that's what you can see happening over in the top left. We've got our experienced crew of volunteers rescuing this California sea lion in the middle. So they're wearing personal protective equipment, of course, in the form of these wooden boards, because these are wild animals. And we'll also sometimes use nets to help us catch the animal safely. Once we rescue the animal and bring it to our hospital, our team of veterinarians and animal care volunteers will take care of them, do an admit exam to figure out what's wrong with the animal so that we can provide it with the best care. And what's really cool about us being a marine mammal hospital is that it's actually really similar to any human hospital. So we can do a lot of the same tests you might have seen either from going to your regular checkup appointment at the doctor's or watching Grey's Anatomy, perhaps. We can perform x-rays, all kinds of lab tests and scans. Here we have some of our veterinarians performing an exam on a sea otter. And then on top of rescue and rehabilitation, an important part of our work is research. So understanding why these animals are coming in the first place, what is wrong with them, what is making them sick, and finding out what they can tell us about the health of our ocean and also the health of humans. We do share an ecosystem, the coastline, with these animals, and marine mammal health has a lot of overlap with human health. So make sure to check out our website. We've got a research page with a lot of our different research projects and findings if you're interested in that. But after research, the fourth R is release. So that's always the ultimate goal with every single one of our animals, is to give them a second chance at life. So as soon as they're feeling better at the hospital, we will release them back to the wild to get a second chance at life. And it might be too small for you to see on this picture, but we do tag all our animals so that we know who's come in. And if we see them again, we know if they're doing well, and we can pull up their charts again if in case they ever need our help again. And then the last important pillar of our work is education. It's what Katie and I do, spreading the word about marine mammals and how people can help them and our oceans stay healthy. So unfortunately, the Marine Mammal Center is currently closed to the public, but our virtual doors of learning are still open. So make sure to head to our website, go to the education tab, and in there you'll find our online learning resources with lots of fun educational activities, as well as some of our other programs for general audiences or for high schoolers, middle schoolers. So feel free to explore that part of our website. We've got lots of great things on there. And of course, even though we are closed to the public, we still remain an essential business. We are a marine mammal hospital, and throughout this whole time, we've still been rescuing and taking care of seals and sea lions, and we are quite busy right now. This is the springtime when we tend to see lots of northern elephant seal and harbor seal pups. We've got just over 100 patients on site, so our crews and veterinarians are very busy taking care of these animals. And you can keep track of our patient count on our website. And just look at the animal care tab to read more about our current patients and what we are treating them for. So with that introduction to the center, well, let's move on to today's topic, all about celebrating conservation. The month of May actually has Endangered Species Day coming up on May 21st, which is the third Friday of May. And in honor of that, we decided that we would today celebrate some of the conservation wins we've seen with some endangered species that have come back from the brink of extinction or come off the endangered species list, and how we can all help conserve our marine mammal species and oceans. So I will pass it over to Katie to tell us a little bit more about the Endangered Species Act and what all these terms mean.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, so the Endangered Species Act was enacted in 1973, and it provides for conservation of endangered and threatened species of fish, wildlife, and plants. So an endangered species is one that is in danger of becoming extinct. So their population numbers are very low, that they may disappear. And a threatened species is a species that is likely to become endangered. So one step above that endangered level. And this act protects more than just the animals and plants, but also their habitats, because that's incredibly important to help those populations be supported and help them survive. And currently it protects about 1,600 species of plants and animals. So when there's a success with the Endangered Species Act, an animal is removed from that list, and we call that a delisted species. And there have been 28 animals delisted since 1999, and a 90% recovery rate in more than 100 different species. So we've learned endangered, threatened, and delisted species. So in our last slide, we saw some examples of some delisted species, and now it's time for a little quiz to see how well you know your endangered animals. So which of the following species do you think has been successfully recovered and delisted? Do you think it's A, the Virginia northern flying squirrel, B, the American alligator, C, the bald eagle, or D, all the above? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat, and we'll give you a few minutes to think on it here. It's okay if you don't know. You're welcome to guess too.
We've got a couple guesses coming through. Someone said, Jane says D, all of the above. Another person, Terry, also says D, all of the above. Nice. Couple more goes for D. Kelly says C, the bald eagle. Nice.
All right. Lots of great guesses coming in.
All right. Well done, everyone. Another person going for C.
Well, it looks like the majority of our answers are actually correct. It's D, all of the above. So the Virginia northern flying squirrel was delisted in 2013, and the American alligator was delisted in 1987, and the bald eagle was delisted in 2007. So in our first slide about delisted species, we saw 3 marine mammals. And although they may not be protected by the Endangered Species Act anymore, all marine mammals, regardless of their status, are protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And the Marine Mammal Protection Act was established in 1972, and it was due to a response of increasing concerns of both scientists and the public that there were significant declines in some marine animal species that were caused by humans. So this makes it illegal to touch, harass, feed, hunt, capture, or kill any marine mammal. So not just endangered or threatened species, but all marine mammals are protected. And it's managed by these organizations: NOAA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Marine Mammal Commission. They all kind of share those responsibilities. And our Arctic areas are co-managed with the Alaska Native organizations, which is really great because their indigenous knowledge helps to inform government scientists, and those cultural traditions are preserved and passed on to young people. So now, Diane, can you tell us a little bit more about one of these species that has benefited from both the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act?
Yes, thank you, Katie, for that great overview. So we'll start with the humpback whales, in which we saw in one of Katie's slides was delisted in 2015. For those of you who aren't familiar with the humpback whale, these gentle giants are a species of baleen whale, and they are very popular with whale watchers around the world for their very showy behaviors at the surface. They really like to breach, they like to slap their long pectoral fins against the water, and when they dive, they like to show their flukes or tail fins. So very interesting species to watch. They also have a very distinct appearance. So they're pretty large. They grow up to about 60 feet long, and but they're kind of known for those little knobbles on their head that are called tubercles, which are actually hair follicles. As we know, whales are marine mammals, and so they have hair follicles just like us, which is a pretty fun fact. But humpback whales are also really well known for the beautiful complex songs that the males sing, and I'll play a little clip for you. Nice. So humpback whales can be found in all of the world's major oceans. So on this map here in the light blue area is where all the humpback whales range. So you can see they cover pretty much the whole world. In green, you can see their main feeding areas. And in these numbered circles here, you can see all the different populations. So there's 14 distinct populations of humpback whales. And I mentioned a lot of them were delisted in 2015, and those are the ones in blue. So 9 out of the 14 of them are not threatened or endangered. They were delisted. But we can see on this map, there's still a couple species that, still a couple population groups that deserve our attention. So in red are the populations that do remain endangered. And then in yellow here, number 5 is a species that is threatened, and that happens to be the population of humpback whales that we see along the coast of California and Mexico. And some of the threats that these humpback whales face include entanglement in fishing gear. And the Marine Mammal Center is currently working with, is part of a working group to prevent entanglement of whales along our coast. So working really closely with fishermen to come up with solutions that benefit both people and whales to prevent such entanglements. But in the case of an entanglement of a whale getting entangled, we're also part of the large whale disentanglement network. So I have a video of us going out and responding to an entangled humpback whale a couple years ago.
Almost there. Come up on us to follow the whale. Whale is now free.
There you go, a little feel-good video.
Mhm.
And right around this time of year too, another thing with humpback whales is that we've seen them starting to come into the bay to feed, and that's something into the San Francisco Bay, and that's something they didn't really do until 2016. But ever since that year, we've seen them coming back every year to feed on anchovies. So that is a good sign for the health of the bay and for whale watchers, of course. So the first humpback whale we saw this year was actually spotted earlier in March, Tina. And then from that time, we're likely to see humpback whales coming in and out of the bay until at least November. So great time to go out and see these whales while maintaining a safe distance and speed, of course, to give space to these whales. Because one of the threats, another threat we see with humpback whales, especially ones that come into the San Francisco Bay, is shipping strikes. As you might know, if you've been to San Francisco or live there is a lot of ship traffic in the bay. And with humpback whales diving and feeding around there, it does put them at more risk of shipping strikes. But that is one of the research projects at the Marine Mammal Center. Our cetacean field research groups is taking a close look at humpback whales and also partnering with Cascadia Research to look at humpbacks diving and feeding behavior in the bay, as well as looking at where ships are going versus where humpback whales are going to help prevent ship strikes and potentially inform shipping lanes or speeds in the Bay Area. But if you are on a ship in the bay, it's good to maintain a speed of 10 knots to give whales time to react and avoid getting struck. Another thing that our researchers do is taking lots of photo IDs of these whales. So to keep track of individuals coming in and out of the bay, see if they're coming back year after year, who's coming back and when. And the main way they do that is looking at the humpback whale's flukes or their tail fins, which have really distinctive markings. So every individual whale will have a really different looking underside. So they'll have these different markings and white splotches, patterns on their flukes, which helps researchers identify which whale is which and recognize them from year to year. And we're actually going to practice that. So in the comments, you're going to take a look at these two pictures. So there's whale A and B, and let us know, type in the comments whether you think it is a match, whether you think it's the same whale from looking at these flukes, or if it is not a match, if you think these are two different whales. Let us know what you think. So you can type in match if you think the two pictures match, or no match if you think it is not the same whale.
This is a tough one. We really get a feel for how those scientists feel out in the field trying to make these matches.
Okay, so we've got a couple people saying they're different, that they're not matches. Okay, couple guesses. One person saying it is a match. All right, no match. Let's reveal the answer. It is indeed a match. As Katie said, this is pretty hard to tell sometimes. You can spend a lot of time looking at the pictures, but you can look for these different markings. So I don't know on your screen if you're able to see, but you can tell these whales have kind of similar patterns of where these white splotches are. Again, the pictures are slightly different angles, so it can sometimes be hard to tell, but there are these lines. There's this line here that you can see on this whale here, and this little black line here that you can also see on this whale down here. So they are indeed a match. Okay, let's try again with this different, these two different pictures. Whale C and D. Let us know in the comments if you think they are a match or not a match. And pay close attention to the markings on the whales and the pattern of white on them. All right, we've got a person saying it is a match. We're seeing a couple people saying no match. All right. No match. Let's see if you're right. And it is not a match. You are correct. So you can tell on this bottom one here, there are these circular markings that aren't in the one on the top. And the one on the top has a lot more of those kind of vertical lines that you don't see on the bottom. So they are indeed different whales. Well done. All right, one last one. And then we will move on with the rest of the presentation. Let us know in the comments if you think if it is a match or not a match.
While they're making their guesses, Diane, we had a question in the chat. Somebody asked if the water in the San Francisco Bay is too cold for humpbacks.
Oh, that is a great question. So the bay is actually not too cold for humpback whales. They can survive waters that are as cold as -2 degrees Celsius or 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and air temperatures reaching -40 degrees Celsius, which is same in Fahrenheit. So they're actually really resilient to cold waters, even though they're warm-blooded mammals. And part of that is the blubber layer that a lot of whales and seals and sea lions have to stay warm. So great question. All right, I see a couple answers in the comments. Lots of people saying it's a match, and wow, you are right. Look at you, all could be cetacean field researchers and help us ID whales. Well done, everyone. You can see these same circular patterns on both of these pictures, so we know they are the same humpback whale. Well, if you did well on this quiz, you could be a great community scientist for us. So if you are in the San Francisco Bay and you see a whale, a dolphin, or a porpoise, please take a picture and report your sightings to our cetacean field research team. You can do so on our website. And if you are not in the San Francisco Bay, you can still report your sightings on citizenscience.gov, so you can submit your pictures there. This is a great way to help us do research, keep track of these animals, and help protect them. So really important work that you can help with. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Katie to talk about one species that's very familiar to us, the elephant seals that actually came back from the brink of extinction and are now doing quite well.
Thanks, Diane. Yes, elephant seals are the second most popular or most common patient at the Marine Mammal Center, and they're an excellent example of a conservation success. So in the 1800s, they were hunted to near extinction for their blubber. You can see an example of what their blubber was used for down there in that picture of the harness oil. And they were believed to be less than 100 individuals. So that is not a stable population. They were very much in danger there. But luckily, the Mexican government began to create a sanctuary in 1922 on the Isla Guadalupe to help protect these elephant seals. The U.S. followed suit by protecting seals on the Channel Islands, and they were able to recolonize that area in the 1930s. We also saw them popping up in the Año Nuevo Island and the Southeast Farallon Islands in the 60s and 70s. And today we see them doing quite well, and they are currently a species of least concern. So before they were preserved, their range was pretty small, down to just 100 individuals. But you can see on the right here that their range is all the way from Mexico up the west coast up towards Canada there. So their current population numbers are 150,000, and 124,000 of them are in California alone. So we're really happy to see such strong numbers with our elephant seals. So let's talk about one elephant seal in particular. Oh, I forgot we have our quiz first. Okay, so what do you all think is happening with the elephant seal population now? We know they came back from the brink, but do you think they are increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? Go ahead and answer A, B, or C in the comments. to let us know what you think is happening with our elephant seal populations today.
Nice.
All right, we've got a guess for C, staying the same. A, hopefully. I like your optimism, Martin. Some more A's. B.
Nice. Well done,
All
everyone.
right. Got some good guesses in here. I like your comment on that, Angie, a lot at the center. Yep, they are a very common patient there, especially this time of year. All right, well, I think it's time to reveal elephant seal populations today are still increasing. So that means that those protection measures were not only successful back then, but they're still successful today. And so now we're going to talk about one of our individual elephant seals. As some of you have commented, there are a lot at the center recently. And one who just left the center recently is named Cake. He is a northern elephant seal pup, and he was rescued in March in Santa Cruz. And he was treated for malnutrition, which meant he was much too thin. That's one of the common threats that we see with these elephant seals. We also see maternal separation or negative human interaction like entanglement in fishing debris or other ocean trash. So Cake was suffering from malnutrition and he was brought to the center, and in less than 6 weeks they were able to get him nice and healthy and strong, and he graduated from fish school, which means that he has the skills to go out into the ocean and catch his own meals. And so here you can see on April 22nd, so not that long ago, Cake was able to make his way back to the sea. So another successful marine rescue for us here. And if you want to support elephant seals in particular, you can go ahead and check out our website and sign up to adopt a seal. Representing those elephant seal pups is Zurich, a pretty little female pup who was 4th place in our 2020 Patient of the Year, so she's quite popular. And if you wanted to adopt her, you could do that for yourself or even a gift for somebody else. You receive a digital certificate of adoption that you can download to show everybody how much you've done to support our seals. And the funds go directly to patients, just like Cake or Zurich here. So every dollar that you donate to our Adopt a Seal program can provide about 1 pound of fish for these animals. And as Cake demonstrated, malnutrition is one of those issues. So getting that fish to them is really important. And one other way that we protect these animals is through marine protected areas. So if you'll remember from a few slides back when I talked about how protecting the breeding grounds for those elephant seals was key to getting them back to these stable population numbers, well, we recognize that more than ever now and are looking at creating these marine protected areas all around the globe. These are clearly defined geographical areas that are dedicated to conservation. So they are managed by legal or other effective means, and they protect entire ecosystems for the animals. And they take shape in many different ways. You can see here that they may be listed as a state park or a wild refuge or a local area. And this is because they're kind of similar to an underwater national park. So these are areas where we can still go and enjoy that beauty of nature, but they're very well protected, not just for individual endangered species, but for the entire ecosystem that lives in that area. So here are some of the California networks. As you can see on the map of the whole state on the left-hand side, there are a number of marine protected areas up and down the coast. And the key on the right-hand side of that map of California shows the different types of marine protected areas. So some are open only for recreation, some are not even open at all, and most of them have a no-take policy, which means no fishing or collecting of any species in that area. And on the right-hand side, you can see the ones that are closest to the Sausalito Hospital right there. And California provides a really great example of a well-managed network of those marine protected areas. So this can serve as a model as we move forward in creating more and more MPAs. There's a goal or a program called 30 by 30, which aims to protect 30% of global waters by the year 2030. So that's one way that you can support these marine protected areas. Another thing that you could do is you could find one nearby and you could go ahead and support it. If you are interested, or if you've been to a marine protected area before, go ahead and share it within the chat. Some people, it seemed like we had people from all over, so this might inspire people to visit some of those marine protected areas. And if you don't have a marine protected area near you, you can actually nominate one. So you can go to this website, nominate.noaa.gov, to nominate a sanctuary near you. So, Diane, can you tell us about this, the country's largest marine protected area?
I sure can, Katie, and it happens to be in Hawaii, where the Marine Mammal Center also works with the endangered Hawaiian monk seal. So the protected area is called the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. And just to get you located here on this map, on the right-hand side here near the bottom are the main Hawaiian Islands, which are the ones that are populated by people. Then on the left here, encircled in blue, are the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And that's where this Marine National Monument is, which is a type of marine protected area. And this area was recently expanded, so you can see how large it was until a couple years ago. So this dotted line here was the original area it covered, and then it more than doubled in size a couple years ago during the Obama administration. And it encompasses all of these islands, and within this area are a lot of endangered species, one of them being the endangered Hawaiian monk seal. There's only 1,400 of them left in the wild. They are the most endangered species of seal, and we actually take care of them at the Marine Mammal Center, but not at the Sausalito Hospital. We have a separate hospital on the main Hawaiian island, which is where this arrow is pointing to. And that hospital is called Keikaiola, or the Healing Sea, and it specializes in taking care of only Hawaiian monk seals. Now, if you've been to our hospital in Sausalito, you might notice that the pools and pens look quite similar to there, and this hospital does function in very similar ways to our main hospital in California. But sometimes they're Hawaiian monk seals, because they're endangered. They live in Hawaii, and they sometimes have a longer stay. They get some special treatment in the form of enrichments and sometimes live lobster. So I've got a fun little video of our Hawaiian monk seals feeding on some lobster. And then I mentioned that Hawaiian monk seals are the most endangered species of seal in the United States. And there's a couple reasons for that. But one big one is being loss of habitat due to climate change. So as we burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, excess carbon dioxide escapes into the atmosphere, builds up, and causes a sort of heat trapping blanket around the globe. And that warms the air, the earth, and the oceans. And as the oceans warm, the glaciers melt, but water also expands with heat. So we see sea levels rising around the world. And unfortunately, the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, they're only a couple feet above sea level. So that means with even just a little bit of sea level rise, that leads to a lot of lost beach space for these species. And Hawaiian monk seals do rely on those beaches to give birth to their pups and rest. So one of the things we see our Hawaiian monk seals coming in with is maternal separation, which becomes more likely as beach space goes away. We are also seeing a lot of seals being impacted by prey limitation due to the impacts of overfishing and also warming oceans. And so really similar to the elephant seals over in California, mostly the pups, the younger animals, struggling to find enough food to sustain themselves on their own. And then we have other threats that I won't get too much into today, but they include entanglements in fishing line or ocean trash. They're also prone to different diseases. And then human interaction is also becoming a threat to Hawaiian monk seals that live on the main highlands. But I want to give you a little highlight or story of a recent Hawaiian monk seal patient that we released pretty recently. So this is Mele. She is a juvenile female Hawaiian monk seal that was rescued from the island of Oahu on Hawaii. And you'll notice that's one of the main Hawaiian islands. So we do have a small subset of the Hawaiian monk seal population that does live and swim around the main Hawaiian islands instead of the northwestern Hawaiian islands. And because she was on the main islands, researchers had been keeping a close eye on her, and they noticed that over a period of a couple months, Mele was losing a lot of weight, and they were worried that she was becoming malnourished and potentially getting sick, that there's something else going on. So we picked her up and took her to the Marine Mammal Center, where we did an abdomen exam and found that she was indeed malnourished and also had some parasites. So she got treated to our hospital at our hospital for a couple months, and eventually got to be released on March 26th. And Mele is actually, in the Hawaiian language, means chant or song, so very poetic name. And Hawaiian monk seal releases look a little different than releases we do in California, if I've ever seen some of those. So Hawaiian monk seals sometimes get to fly with the U.S. Coast Guard, which was the case with Mele. She's getting loaded here, the back of our truck, into the plane, and she was flown back to Oahu, where she was released back to the wild. And this is a little picture of Mele going back home. Turning around to say goodbye, going back to the ocean. So Mele was actually the 35th Hawaiian monk seal that the Marine Mammal Center's released since 2014, which is when we opened our hospital in Hawaii. And that accounts for 2.5% of the Hawaiian monk seal population, which is huge with the amount of monk seals left. And it doesn't account for all the pups that these seals can then go on to have, such as Mele, who is a female Hawaiian monk seal. So we know we are slowly but surely making a difference. And one way you can help, obviously, is to call us if you see an endangered Hawaiian monk seal if you live out in Hawaii, but also report your sightings. If you see a healthy seal out on the beach, it's important for us to keep a close eye on these endangered species. So if you're on the main Hawaiian Islands, you can call this number on the right. If you're coming from the other Hawaiian Islands, please call the statewide number, but that helps us a whole lot. And then if you are not in Hawaii, another way you can help is adopting a seal. So you can adopt an endangered species like makakilo to help support Hawaiian monk seal conservation in Hawaii. She was found in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands and released a couple months later. And then, of course, all the other things we mentioned in this presentation, it's really important to speak up, support the marine protected areas. Katie highlighted the 30 by 30 campaign. They have a website if you want to learn more. Support your local marine protected areas. You can go out and explore them. They're usually to the ones that you can go to. You can also be a community scientist, report your Hawaiian monk seal sightings or your whale sightings, and help us do the important work of researching and understanding these species. Or tell someone about the Marine Mammal Center and our Adopt a Seal program and help us continue doing our work. And with that, I want to invite you to join us for our next Marine Mammal Monday next month on Monday, June 7th, all about marine mammals of the world, where you'll get to learn not just about marine mammals of the West Coast, but marine mammals in all the world's oceans, and find out how they are all connected to each other and to us through the ocean ecosystem. And Katie and I will, of course, stay on to answer any questions in the comments. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for participating, for listening. It was such a pleasure to be here with you. And I want to thank Katie for presenting with me today. It was her first Marine Mammal Monday, and it was so fun to present with you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. I had a great time too.
Awesome. So I'm going to take a look through the comments. So we have a comment, someone asking what happens to a whale if it got hit by a ship? So we were talking about humpback whales and ship strikes in the San Francisco Bay earlier in the presentation. And unfortunately, the blunt force trauma, so we see very big ships in the bay. Unfortunately, the trauma itself will usually kill the whale on impact. For example, in the month of April, our scientists responded to 5 dead whales in the Bay Area, and 3 of those were the cause of death was a suspected ship strike. So unfortunately, they don't often survive. They can get cuts from propellers sometimes from smaller boats and survive those injuries, but we'd like to avoid those at all costs. And then we had another question about that came in earlier about the scars. So we saw the flukes. We did the little whale tail ID game. The circular scars on the whales can be from small predators like cookie cutter sharks, which leave circular marks. And it can also be from creatures like barnacles just latching on to the whales and just leaving some scarring on them. So just like us, they can get scars as they move through life. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. I do see one question from Jane. Are there Hawaiian monk seal populations on all of the Hawaiian Islands? That is a great question. I know there is a population of around, so of the 1,400 Hawaiian monk seals left, about 1,000, 1,100 of them are on the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, which are not populated by people, and around 300 live around the main Hawaiian Islands. And I don't know if they have been seen on every single one of the main Hawaiian Islands, but they've definitely been seen on most of them. All right. I believe that is most of I think that's all of our questions. There are lots of comments, so if we didn't get to you, we'll try to answer in the comment box, but want to thank you again so much for joining. It was such a pleasure to present with you today, and hopefully we will see you next month. Bye, everyone.